This exercise is called lean backs. It aims to work the abdominal muscles and it also involves flexion, particularly of the lumbar spine. So for that reason, it's unsuitable for osteoporosis, and I would urge caution with any particular back problems involving disc issues. So take that on a case-by-case basis. All of the abdominal exercises in the BarreConcept series are not suitable for use during pregnancy. So you're going to be sitting upright, nice and tall, thinking about the alignment, feet hip width apart, middle of the hip, middle of the knee, down to the second toe. Your arms are stretched out, shoulders are away from the ears. So the initial cue for this exercise is to tuck that tailbone under, almost like you've been punched and winded. Tuck that tailbone under, increase that lumbar flexion, pushing that waistband towards the mat and roll down as far as you feel comfortable and able. And then slowly roll up until your shoulders are above the hips and then restack the spine. So it's get that C curve as if you've been punched in the stomach, pull in the pelvic floor belly button, tuck that tailbone under, waistband to mat, roll down to a level you feel comfortable with and then slowly roll back up again to sitting. So if there's any issues with back problems, disc issues or osteoporosis, then you can do this exercise and it can be modified so that it becomes just a hinge back rather than flexion of the spine. So rather than curling the spine stays in a neutral position. You'll only go so far and then gently coming back up again. Okay? So that would be your modified version. If it felt still uncomfortable, you can always lie down. Again, this is not for back problems or osteoporosis, but the hip flexors often get a little tight during this exercise and they can grip and it can start to ache and feel uncomfortable. So if during a particular exercise it feels uncomfortable, then you might want to just do an abdominal curl up. And again, this is not for osteoporosis, pregnancy, or certain back problems or disc issues. But if you're just feeling generally tired or your hip flexors are screaming at you for overworking, then that would be a suitable alternative if you didn't want to hinge back. So I'm going to talk you through the technique and we're going to use Jasmine to help us out here. So Jasmine sits upright. So first of all, it's often difficult for a lot of people to sit upright in this position. Try to do your best. Don't force the position. It may be that you have a little bit of lumbar flexion initially, but stretching the arms out. We can always use a prop here, so you can put a little cushion underneath just to ease that and give a little bit of height to assist. So hands are at shoulder level and you want to make sure that those collarbones are wide and the shoulders are down. And feel like there's a piece of string pulling out the top of your head, so nice and tall. So you breathe in to prepare, gently blow out through the mouth, engage pelvic floor belly button, feel like you've been punched in the tummy, increase that lumbar flexion, roll back onto those sit bones and just go down as far as you feel comfortable and far as you feel able. And then breathe in to prepare. Really zip, scoop and hollow the pelvic floor belly button and curl over, draw the chin down. And when the shoulders are above the hips, you restack the spine, coming up nice and tall. So again, it's just halfway down, halfway back, or wherever you can get to that feels comfortable for you. So you should feel the work in the abdominals. Where you shouldn't feel it is in the lower back. If you feel it in the lower back, then choose one of the modified versions instead. We can also use our arms and some props to make it easier. Props that can either make an exercise harder or easier. So first of all, Jasmine's going to put her hands just behind her thighs, and as she rolls back, the hands just gently slide down the back of the thighs. So breathing in, stretching up tall. As you exhale, engage pelvic floor belly button, tuck that tailbone under and gently roll back, looking straight ahead. So the chin is parallel to the floor and she's just using her arms for a little bit of assistance there. And then as she comes over, it's like almost she's going to fold over to a barrel. Her elbows bend slightly and she uses her arms to pull up. I'm going to get a little prop here and we can use this little ball just behind the spine here, because as Jasmine rolls back, the ball is taking her weight. So she gently tucks that tailbone under, increases that lumbar flexion and rolls back. And now she's really being supported on the ball here. She breathes in, pulls in the core abdominals, breathes out, curls over the barrel and then restacks the spine. So does that feel like you're nice and supported? Yeah. Good. We can also use a different prop. We can use a stretch band, and the stretch band can actually go behind the feet and holding on to each end. So now I'm going to take the ball away and Jasmine's just going to roll back, and as she rolls back the band stretches, so she's got some tension there holding her up. Breathing in and exhale, gently rolling back up again. One more time, breathing in and exhale, gently rolling back, tucking the chin in slightly as you get further down. Beautiful. Opening out those collarbones, breathe in, curl over and reaching back up. So that's another modified version using some props. The other thing to mention about hip flexors, we'll give you a modified version lying on the floor. But the other thing about hip flexors is there's two other things that you can do to take the pressure off those hips. The first thing would be to straighten one leg. So let's say we straighten the right leg and push out through that right heel. So breathing in to prepare, and then gently exhale, gently rolling back, chin parallel to the floor, pushing out through that heel. And then leaning is that you're leaning over a barrel and then restack the spine. So one hip flexor gets a little bit of time out there, and obviously you would then change. The other thing that you can do to take off the pressure is, Jasmine, if you palpate your hip flexors, so just touching those hip flexor muscles here at the front, can you feel them as you, and then just sort of start to roll back and you might feel them kick in. Now, let's just turn the legs out. So often the hip flexor you can really get hold of it now when the legs are turned out. However, if you turn the knees inwards and rotate in, you can often help to release the hip flexor. What you will feel is a little muscle here, one of your internal rotators of the leg. It's called your TFL, your tensor fascia lata muscle, which is just round to the side. You might feel that kick in and the hip flexors release. So that's another little technique you can use if your hip flexors start to feel tired. One more thing I would want to mention, there is one other thing to consider, and that's to do with the tailbone or the coccyx. In most people, the coccyx actually pushes down and then slightly tucks under, like a little tail tucking under. But in some people, the coccyx just points directly down, which means it's going to be very uncomfortable rolling over that bone as you lean back. If any of you know anybody, or even if you've fell onto your butt yourself at some point, you might have damaged the coccyx and it might feel a little bruised, and that's just a temporary issue. But again, it would feel very uncomfortable when you get to a certain point where it's got to tuck under, because it'll feel bruised. There is a way to get around that. You can put yourself up. There are some what I call donuts, and you actually blow into them. It's like a cushion of air, and there's a little hole in the center where you sit, where you would put your coccyx, so that your coccyx is raised as you roll back, so it doesn't make any contact with the floor. If you haven't got a little blowy up donut prop, what you can also use is you can roll up some towels and put them together in like a triangle formation, so that you can protect your coccyx that way. So that's your lean backs exercise. The thing I want you to consider is how to apply the BarreConcept formula, because in its true nature you want a full range movement followed by an end range pulse, followed by a static hold. And within that static hold, you're doing something spicy or something creative. So each time you perform a basic lean back exercise, it can change week to week because of the static hold, and that's where you let your creativity flow. So let's have a little try. So sitting upright Arms are going to be stretched out. Let's say we're going to do just 4 full range. Normally we do at least 8. So Jasmine's going to roll back, down, 2, 3, 4, and up, 2, 3, 4, down, 2, 3, 4, and up, 2, 3, 4. Exhale and inhale. One more. Down, 2, 3, 4, and hold it there. Down 1 inch and up an inch. Down an inch and up an inch. Exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. Let's do 4 more, 3 more, 2 more, and hold it here. Now this is a static hold, and remember, we can do something spicy here. We don't just want to hold because it's a little bit boring. So why not have a little oblique curl and center, side and center, and center, and center. Yes, you can come up now, Jasmine. So in its basic format, it's just a lean back. But remember, if somebody is strong and they're stable in the core, then apply the formula. If they're not strong and stable in the core abdominals, then just keep it to the full range movement. So end range pulses followed by that static hold. And within that static hold, we've just shown you for the obliques, what you may do is just a pelvic tilt. So you're just tucking under, then releasing, tucking under, then releasing. Now, be careful, when you do this static hold, as you tuck under, you're not going to come forward and back. You've got to stay at the exact same height, and it's just a pelvic tilt north, and then release to neutral. Tuck under, then release. And every time you tuck under, it works the abdominals a lot harder. It's quite a difficult exercise, that one, and then release. So you might do that as a static hold. You might even just hold it here and do some arm movements up and down. Every time you lift the arms above the head, it increases the resistance for the abdominals, so it makes the work harder. You might kick a leg out and release. You could do an oblique twist, release. 8 to one side, 8 to the other side, 8 alternate. So it's the static hold after you've done those little pulses where you can get creative, and that can change that particular exercise each week. How did you feel there, Jasmine?
Good, yeah.
Yes? Mm-hmm. So it should kind of get a little bit of a burn there, but again, only if you can handle it.